Greetings. ADI, Dr. Iman Black, Metamorphosis, Sports. Using this particular episode to speak to a realm of life that we often as Africans don't fully understand. The overall theme and topic for this metamorphosis is the decolonizing of sports, particularly football in Jamaica. Decolonizing sports. The reggaeboyz loads in the Gold Cup. And so there's grief in the island in that realm of world called sports. The sporting world in Jamaica is grieving because of the non-performance of the reggaeboyz. The sporting community is also grieving because 4 of our finest athletes have seen it fit to switch allegiance, in quotes, and to cause enough responses in Jamaica, reactions, even at the level of the government, knee-jerk reactions based on these behaviors. So I want to speak a little bit about the sport. And if you're talking about people trying to liberate themselves, to break away from the colonizing effects of the colonizer, we have to also examine the realm of sport. And how do we decolonize sport? And what is that dimension called sport? Now we've been given some explanations as to what sport is. But do we as our people ever really sit in and explore and examine what really going on when we are engaged in games? What are the end results of games? Who benefit when games are played? So this episode, I want to speak to sports. What is sport? And I put it to you that in our general indoctrination, we are told that there are 2 main activities in the life of man. First one is work. And you are encouraged to put value on work. Work is very important. Work gives you respect. Work gives you honor. Work gives you revenue. And black people now have been told to work. And you must work hard and learn to work hard. So we sort of have a construct, mental idea of what this work is all about. But then there's another side to the coin. And the same education system tells you that all work and no play make Jack and Jill no boy-girl persons. So there's another dimension that is connected to work. And we're going to call that play. So imagine a x-axis, a line, and at one end is work. And I'm suggesting to the island know that there's something at the other end. And this is what now we are told is play. And play is a side of experience where we are only supposed to engage in this when we are not working. So to get away from work, we are supposed to engage in play. So what is the meaning of sport? Sport comes from the French. Déporter. D-E-S-P-O-R-T-E-R. Déporter, which means to move away from work. So that here again we have work. And as Africans, we not only worked, we were slaves. We were cattle. So we have been indoctrinated and seasoned into this side of it, the phenomenon. Work. Workers. and we are conditioned to be workers. No. To get away from work leads you into sport, games, play. So I'm making this point to show the island now that as African people coming through the Western capital formation system, we only knew work. We never knew play. So coming through the society now, into the society of Jamaica from emancipation onwards, population was told, the black population, that the only way to become a successful African black man was to get an education. And education became the avenue for economic freedom. And education now became the avenue to get to work. In other words, if you wanted to get a work, you have to get an education. Look at the Jamaican context. So games from that cultural level of analysis is what you do in idle time. You play in idle time because 95% of your time must be concentrated on work. Now, with that understanding, let us look at how these games now are brought into the Caribbean by the British. Because it's the reggaeboyz we get into, we don't get to the reggaeboyz. We're just giving a background as to how sport comes into our region and perhaps a better lens to analyze where we are now. So the British brings their culture with them as colonizers. And in that colonization, these men move with their cultural habits and language and culture and sport and play and games. Games are cultural expression. Games tend to evolve out of the culture of a people. So the British, those white men, brought these games into the region called the Caribbean. These games were brought into this region as a site for recreation for these white people. A site of enjoyment, a site where they could relax from work. Accountants and lawyers, and that is their work. When they want a break from work, they will play. They will engage in games. One of the games that they will engage in the Caribbean was cricket. And history will show how the African will take that game and transform it into a tool and a site of resistance to colonialism itself. Because when the West Indies team rose to the level where we were able to defeat the colonizers of the game, it changed the whole psyche of the African. So sports has been a site of liberation of consciousness for African people. But without going too far forward. So when these games came into the Caribbean, they came with a particular tag attached to those games. And the tag we're going to use is called amateur. Because where these games are coming from, in England and in Britain, that is the site for the modern formation of professional sport. This is in England that games were separated from amateur games and professional games. And one of the most ancient professional sport is horse racing. Horse racing is a profession. A lot of the jockeys in those early times in early England were black men. So sport now in Europe from the Industrial Revolution onward wasn't based strictly on recreation. In Europe and in Britain, 1700 revolution, Industrial Revolution, sport also went through its own revolution, games. And games moved from strictly being recreational and in the college, in the school system, to develop at the club level. the game of football became a business, became a profession. I make this point to show the island that professional sports really have its genesis in Europe and in Britain. In the Caribbean, professional sports didn't come along with the games. The professionalism wasn't brought into the region for games. So the games came into this region as a site of recreation, relaxation, fun, idleness. And on that meditation, the Jamaican society would have grown. And our population will be given the notion that play and games is idleness, waste of time. Get an education that you can get a work. Now we have to recognize ourselves as people and African people in this traumatic situation. Weren't always exposed to education systems. So you have to draw upon our natural talent, like running, boxing. We could participate in games, but never in the official structure. But we had these talents and skills. So football in Jamaica now, brought by the British, established by the army. The army will be the center where our football will develop in Jamaica, up Park Camp. And the football will be grounded in the class system, where it is the children of the upper class and the owners of the plantation that will play these games. The black population in Jamaica, 1835, early 1900s, we don't have the time to play the game. We don't have time to play the game. So the society develops without African people really participating in games in a structured way. So football wasn't really played much by black people in general. Football was in a club structure that was elitist. It was in a school system that was elitist. In the 1950s, the government introduced something called common entrance. And the common entrance allowed now the children of poor people, black people, to get into the secondary schools where the games were being played at an organized level. That's how we get into sports in Jamaica, through the school system. Not forgetting, everything is amateur. Everything is amateur. The organizers, the players, we are amateur culture and amateur society. Sports in the Caribbean generally was not viewed as an amateur activity. But as I say to you, outside of the Caribbean, in industrialized societies, in North America and Europe and South America, sport, especially football, was a big business. Big business. Now, why I speak about background and history is that to talk about sports, it's important that we have what I call a theoretical understanding, framework of how to view sports. So I draw upon my thesis. And this is a thesis I might have to create for the University of the West Indies. This is the industrialization of culture. Reggaeboyz analysis of the Road to France campaign, 80,000 words. This is the foundation of the knowledge that I am speaking out of. It's in the university library and in other places, but this is a thesis. So I'm going to give you a little framework of how to look at what sport is. And I quote George Sage. Sage tells us that sports is a set of social practices and relations that are structured by the culture in which it exists. I will repeat that. Sport is a set of social practices and relations that are structured by the culture in which they exist. And any adequate account of sport must be rooted in an understanding of its location within society. So this society that we're speaking about now, the Jamaican society, and when we locate how sport is structured, it is structured as a site of idleness, a site for recreation, a site for people, youths who are quote unquote, not quote unquote bright. So the discrimination begins in the society where those who are inclined to be sportsmen and women are discriminated against. Because the society is generally trying to school our population to become workers. So when a black youth breaks out in sports like a water boy and makes the 100,000 that the workers, educated people can't make, it creates a petty envy in our society and a grudgefulness between those who are quote unquote educated and pursuing the money, those who are uneducated but talented in entertainment and sports and making the life money. And the society tells the people that these people who make that life money are not educated. So therefore, there are lesser people in status than those who are. So you have a dichotomy in the mind of our society and a fight against those now who are by nature powerful in their entertainment skills and sporting skills. But when the education system defines these youths as not bright, they make these persons begin to view sport as a dumping ground. And once you participate in sport, though, you're supposed to be lacking intellect. It's a deep psychology in the Jamaican society why sport remains amateur. And why those who control the sports are in governing bodies holding the sport in a colonial mode. Because in the colonial mode, the players are like the subjects, and those who are management are like the owners. And in the amateur environment, the workers don't get much. So that worker-slave relation that has been in all aspects of society is being held in the sporting world now. Where those who have on the sweatsuit and sweat and dirty socks are looked down on by those who come in a jacket and tie as management. And this management never ever played the game before. I'm just exaggerating now. But they enter the sport through financial considerations. So the game is hijacked by those who have funding. So when do we ever get now to the state where professionalism would be a part of Jamaica? Football. Has it ever been there? So a brief look at the history and knowledge to get the picture that the 1998 Road to France campaign has been the greatest achievement in this country. It is the event that has established to I and I that we have the potential to be a nation. Not just tribal communities and regions, but to be a nation. And we see the power of sport to bind communities, whether local or abroad, under a banner. And that banner is normally the national flag. For international sports, the flag and the anthem become important symbols of the nation. So the nation is represented at international football. So those who participate now and represent the nation now, we have to look into what is their objective. 1998, the soldiers were Jamaicans at the belly, at the heart, with a sprinkling of British players. In 2025, 26, we have to search for a sprinkling of Jamaican players from Jamaica. The team is totally 99% based on players who are from overseas and whose connection to the team is through lineage. The passion and the compassion that is necessary to represent a nation as a soldier is absent. So these reggae boys, these team that represent the reggae boys in 2025 is nowhere near the commitment and the passion of the team that qualified for the World Cup. What Jamaica's national team now have are players who are using the national team as a site to put something on the resume. At the moment, this is 16 years since first time in 16 years Jamaica has failed to qualify for the World Cup qualifying round at least. So that serious retrograde movement being demonstrated in the football today. And there is a panic. There is a panic. Because for the first time in a long time, the team look as though they have no concept of what football should look like at a national level. It appears to I that this team is playing like a Division 2 English side. Fast forward, everything up to the top, over the top, and don't crosses and crosses. The Caribbean flavor, the Jamaican rhythm does not exist in this program. The coach does not live in Jamaica the way FOOTBALL lived in Jamaica. FOOTBALL lived there with his family. FOOTBALL became a Jamaican. FOOTBALL understood the pulse beat of the people. FOOTBALL got a session and grounded in the culture. This man doesn't even come to the island more than when there's a game. So you see the serious disconnections now between this program and what happened 27 years ago. We have gone totally backwards. The decline started at the end of the last of our one experience at the World Cup. Because in 1998, that qualification started from 1990. The qualification began when the Federation under Tony James decided to become professionalized. They managed to love the game and they had the club side involved and realized that professionalism in administration would be essential to move Jamaica's football. Whole heap of talent in the 80s, schoolboy and club wise, rural and urban, plenty talented football. But no national organization toward moving the country's football. So the Federation was the first step. Federation became a professional body under the mandate of behavior. The Federation realized that they had to be involved in football politics now in the region. Got themselves involved in the Caribbean Football Union, got themselves involved in CONCACAF, got themselves involved in FIFA. Trinidad and Jack Warner was in the FIFA. Borrell was right behind him. So the Jamaica Caribbean energies were being exerted from the 1990s, early 1990s. The Trinidad national team barely missed the World Cup by a goal. They were eliminated by America. And that put some fire under the Jamaican establishment that was done great yourself as better than Trinidad a long time. So in 1994, Borrell came to the throne. Borrell replaced Heron Dale. And in that replacement, Borrell had the vision of a World Cup, but it was impossible without a technical coach. And because Jamaica is more Brazilian than Brazil, Borrell moved to Brazil, brought in René Simões, and the campaign started in 1994. A campaign, a lot of funding, a lot of sponsorship, a lot of investment because the nation believed in this coach. And we have a history now that if a coach is black skin, there is no funding. Yeah, man, from Dodge Thompson in the 60s to Card Brown to Jeffrey to Downswell to Whitmore, the money always shut off when it comes to the national coach when a black person is a head coach. So the football is being motivated a lot by those who put the money into it. And who puts the money into all the football? The sponsors, and who are these sponsors? The large companies who do not spend money to develop the sport, but they spend to get a promotion for them, for their goods. In other words, they're not into investment or development. They put their money out as a promotion for their own products. So they are not really investors in the football. None of these companies have put about infrastructure for sports or entertainment, but they reap the benefits off the backs of the black population who play the sport. So how the reggaeboyz reach the point now where we get so frazzled out. It began when Burrell stepped aside and left a chain of command without any leadership. In other words, Burrell had established a one-man band to run the reggaeboyz. Burrell became everything. The selector, everything. Burrell would fire coaches and hire coaches and select teams, and Burrell became a one-man club. So on that basis now, every World Cup, the team fell further back in this attempt. Every World Cup since 2000. We have finished lower and lower and finished further and further away from qualification. Consistently. Because there was never any foundation set in the reggaeboyz program. It was a one link to the World Cup. And the people in that island with the belief in this would have just work over and over without any intermediary programs and development and sustenance of coaches and venues. Nothing happened in the country. Nothing happened for football since 1998. Just like no new stadium built since 1962. The same old stadium. Why? The attitude and the mentality towards sports by those who are wealthy, the planter class and the government, that sports is idleness. Yet when the sportsman, like the athletes now, decide to run for another country, all of these people rise up and telling them how them ungrateful. And how they should run for Jamaica. When what is being done to sustain these youths? Zero. Zero in terms of sponsorship, sustainability to be a sportsman internationally. It doesn't come from the Jamaican side. So you see the hypocrisy. Sportsmen supposedly die hard for the country. They must die for the country, but the politician will not die for nobody. And the politician is the one who comes to get the praise and credit when the athlete succeeds. What kind of nonsense is this? What kind of exploitation is this of a resource called sport? Because sport is a resource. Resource simply means anything that is useful is a resource. And football in Jamaica is a major resource that is underexplored and held down. Because what it will liberate is not no middle class, upper class children. It will liberate plantation family, plantation class of people. So boy could I go to America and get a contract and come back to Jamaica and begrudge for the money because he's comparing his money now with what the Prime Minister makes. We are grudgeful people when it comes to how sportsmen and entertainers earn. Yeah, because we're conditioned that is a school system supposed to give you your money. And when both goes and becomes a billionaire, they take their money when they come home. That is evil. Yeah, sports. If he had earned his money from someone that bred him, perhaps he wouldn't even notice. But if that sportsman, a black dude coming from China barefooted, and show you how Jamaica crucial and you want athletes not to stay here just because. Asafa Powell must have out and say he would not allow his children to run for Jamaica when push comes to shove. And everybody crying out, all who crying out never run on a track yet. I've never suffered a pull muscle yet. I've no agony of a sports person, but them talk as though them have these moral positions. And why should sportsmen and entertainers become role models? The politicians should be the role models, but they can't. Because they don't demonstrate anything to follow. But the sportsman must show up in training on time. He must be disciplined and don't argue with the referee. But the politician can fling stones on one another and beat up a woman and everything remains numb. That is what needs to be overthrown. It is a sports world that has highest level of morality and discipline, where people are exposed and shamed. What happens to the leaders who are politicians? And why are they putting pressure on sports persons? They are the ones who should show the example, but we're not seeing it. But people are awakening. So the reggae boys know. The stream of coaches from Simaway's league, I try to identify how is it the team could be so disheveled now with so-called more players and better players. How can the result be worse with better players? So as the coach just realized McLaren, the players are not good. He is not good. And as him said, him think, so them finally realize that they're not as good as they think. The coach confess that he and the team realize that they're not as good as they thought. His people, just a Jamaican dude say are good. And our ratings of good is mediocre. We have poor analysts here in Jamaica. All our analysts come from 2000 onwards. Since reggaeboyz, we have all these analysts and coaches in Jamaica. So, the football at the highest level nationally has no connection to the island. There's no emotional connection, there's no feeling. Because the team draws its resources from outside places. We can resolve that. We have to reactivate a local program that engages a local national reggae program. There must be something that is on the island that represents the reggae boys. So, will the team qualify for the next World Cup? On paper, opposition look like, but there must be an awakening now that football is not played on paper. So you could put on Bailey and imagine him doing the same thing he does at Aston Villa while he's in Jamaica side. You can put on Alaman and imagine. But there's no training and coaching to put these players to play together in any format. Everything is direct down the line, British football. Where is the Caribbean culture? Where is the reggae boys? Where is the rhythm? There's no rhythm in the team. Because the reggae drop out. What we have now is just boys. English boys. You see, where the coach leaves out a fit and upcoming Jamaican striker and includes on the squad a player who can't play because he's recovering from a broken leg. That is a club side movement. It's not a national team movement. That man can't play, that man shouldn't even be on the squad at the expense of a fit player. So I see that this thing is a resume building. McLaren don't really have the clue about the culture of our football. His culture is British. So the team is playing like a British team. We will not see anything that looks like Caribbean or Jamaica. So the 2 short passes and the 3 short passes followed by a long pass, all of these type of styles don't exist in McLaren's program. The coach has claimed that at the end of this World Cup, no player now has a starting position. This is 2 months before the World Cup. He doesn't declare a nucleus, defining that nobody has a starting position. What is this all about? So what were all those matches about all those weeks in advance, previous? So anything can happen. The FIFA set it up this World Cup that 3 teams in this region qualify, the host team. These are 3 teams that normally we can't get through. America, Mexico, and Canada. They leave 3 spaces without those 3 teams contending. One of them beat us already now, which is Panama. Then there's Costa Rica, Honduras, Trinidad and Tobago. These are the nations that are also vying to get into it. So right now, the coach has taken the team to the final 12. And on paper, we must contest Bermuda, Trinidad and Tobago, and Curacao. And the arrogance is so great that people think that Jamaica is a shoe-in because those 3 teams are behind us in FIFA rankings. World Cup is not FIFA rankings. World Cup is heart and commitment and guts. And that is what the reggaeboyz lacking. That's what the coach doesn't understand, how to generate. So where will the program go? I will make a suggestion. That we're barking up the wrong tree. World Cup is not where Jamaica should be focusing on. Our focus as an amateur country should be on the Olympics. And Olympic football should be our priority. Where we channel our top schoolboy players, all money, all the custom. We channel them into an ongoing Olympic program. These players stay together until the next round of the Olympics. They train every 2-3 months. There's a national Olympic coach. These players are kept together for the next Olympics. And we begin to work towards getting into the Olympics and to win a medal. Follow the pattern of Ghana and other countries who didn't have the club structure. It was the Olympic Games that Uruguay used to organize themselves to win the first World Cup. We in Jamaica tried to make the leap from national to World Cup in one go. It happened because of fortune in 1998. That is not a pattern that is sustainable. So I'm suggesting that the football, rather than fight every 4 years to get into the World Cup without any national passion, we build a passionate team grounded in the Olympics. And in the day we qualify for the Olympics and get a medal, we now have the foundation for a World Cup nucleus, World Cup team. Poland did it, Canada did it, United States, it is done. We are lucky and blessed by FIFA and Canada to help us be the novel team in the 98 World Cup. FIFA just expanded to 32 and everything was just irate. Democratizing the football. That doesn't work anymore. So we have to use the reality that we are the only country in the world where our schoolboy football is the dominant feature. The only country that is in FIFA where schoolboy football is more important and challenging than club football. So we have to use that framework to advance ourselves. We don't have any club structure. We never will. The resources are not here. But we have 100 years of schoolboys experience. And these are the top players, the top coaches. We should channel these players not into our local club football that is going nowhere, but into an ongoing Olympic program. And they play games through the year and they constantly preparing for the next Olympics. And we keep that team in preparation. Partnership is needed between the Jamaica Olympic Association and the JFF to sustain that Olympic development team. America did it, Canada did it. I'm not inventing this. It's what has been done by other countries, and their football is way ahead of us. So the Olympic program is the key, where a schoolboy will leave high school as a top player, becomes an Olympian in training. And in the next reason now, I'll put on a superstructure. So do we put on a professional league now on top of this island-wide Division 1 that we have now. What we call in Premier League is a Division 1 league. We need one more structure on top of that. A professional league, 6 or 7 teams, financed by the hotels and business houses, and that becomes our professional setup. Olympians get into that through a draft, and we set up the football at a different level. Can't be searching for a coach every World Cup. It doesn't work like that. Consistency and development of your own coaching. We should be investing in coaches. Who's going to invest? It can't be the government. The same money, the money who run in the hotels, and these are the people who want to put in the money now to make Jamaica a safe place. Those investors will make Jamaica a less violent place. The money from the tourism pumped into these areas, the hospital and the roads and sports entertainment. So revolution is needed. And sports is the site of the revolution. Because it's a global feeling. In Jamaica, people are disturbed by what's happening in the world of sports. Reggaeboyz get frazzled out. Athletes are leaving at a young age. They don't want to represent Jamaica because Jamaica is not a part of their growth in preparation to who they are now. no investment, no infrastructure. Poor people climb on their own till they reach a certain level, and then everybody jump on and run with them. But there's nobody there to help them from the base. They're on their own. So what is the point? So people just stand up back and watch. And when you look like you're going to promise it, they run home. And they look to see who they can promote their business with. They're not developing the sport. So, yes, the reggaeboy campaign goes on, trying to qualify for this next World Cup. But what we're seeing and what we have seen provides no motivation, no inspiration. But it's ball game. And these men who we have for the national program, we hear that they are professionals. Professionals alone can't play football. The coach has admitted that in practice not important, so the team will play dance. Maybe we have to check out, maybe we have to do something more than coaches still. Maybe it's not too late. Maybe it's not too late to bring in an African coach. Go up on the continent and get one of the coaches and move down the World Cup in Ghana. And bring two African coach and roll with them and make them put a different vibes on the side. Because still Africans out there playing out, though they are British. But then disconnected from the culture of a place like Jamaica. They don't understand the rhythm. So we need some rhythm in the game. We need an African coach to take us the rest of the journey. Alright, so better sports. Many are angry. Many are claiming that the boys lack patriotism. But patriotism is not something that we know we can take to the supermarket. And patriotism doesn't pay the bills generally. If you're looking for your own future, you have to go beyond patriotism. So the attitude have to change now, where sport is no longer viewed as idle. But we surround sports with an economic philosophy. Yes, if we surround sports with an economic philosophy, so from primary school straight through to the highest level of education, it is understood that sports is also another avenue for upliftment and talent and economic development. We cannot really separate them at the youth level. They have to have the education and they have to have an opportunity to maximize their talents. But when the time comes to determine whether that entertainment or sporting talent should be professional or not, it has been an important decision made with great counseling. We have two young runners, twins, and they have been guided and counseled that they are now professionals and running at the top level. So there is guidance and there is a structure for our young athletes to become professionals. It doesn't exist for the football at the moment. Our football thinks about going to college in America and then trying to get us think to go into England. There's nothing here that holds a youth to make him want to stay, because the coaching level and the infrastructure here is another issue. So the coaching is a problematic in this reggaeboyz. The administration remains amateur, but that has not changed. They hold the colonial mentality that they are the governors and everybody else is below them. So secretary of the administration and the president, these guys feel as if they're in a different quote-unquote class than the players. The players are looked at as workers and they are management. So they brought the colonial class structure into sports. It's not driven by professionalism. Results are not what define who is good and who is not good. It is who like who and who don't like who. And I'll wrap up this with the irony. In our federation, there is an officer. I think he's in charge of our technical committee. This is a bridging from Portland that is called Speed. He is also the coach of the winning team in our Premier League. And that team is Cavalier. Not only is Cavalier the champions of our Premier League, they're also champions of the Caribbean Club League. So watch this. So this brethren, who is a chairman of the technical committee of our football, I think I have it right here. He's also the coach of the champion team in the island, twice now out of 3 years, some consistency. And also winners of the Champion League, our local Caribbean team. Will you believe me when I tell you that with whatever these coaches achieve, he really gets no ratings in Jamaica? This brethren, if you follow the statistics, could be maybe a candidate now for national team. But it doesn't work that way in Jamaica. Because in Jamaica, it's not the results that necessarily define whether a coach goes to the national team or goes to another level higher. It's a friend thing. It's still about who like who and who don't like who. Integral in our football. And because we are amateur and petty, the football gets frustrated and stifled by these men and then petty behavior. Amateurism. And it's not just limited to the realm of football. It is glaring in the arena of politics. The amateurism. The same lack of professionalism. The same friend-ism. Jamaica, the land we love to hate. rising up. Oh, party, party, party. Yeah. This is the sound. A nation coming together as one on Jamaica to the power of sport. Yes, cultural unity in the big bar. Yes. So the evidence is clear. Sports is a unifying tool. As much as sports could be used in a divisive way. But for African people, for Black people, it's a platform for organization. Yes, for economic empowerment, for political expression, the realm of sports. However, stop seeing ourselves strictly as performers and begin to identify ourselves as owners of the media and the manufacturers of gears, getting involved in the transportation system that move around entertainers and sportsmen. It's a major industry. But on an island like Jamaica, where we are trained to be servants and to be part of a service industry, where we use the very ones who are with the most education to work in the tertiary industry of hotels. So our highest trained people in the university are encouraged to become servants, dignified noble slaves on the plantations that cater to these white people and these visitors and maintain that servitude mentality even though now you're educated. You see, the full liberation comes when you have your own finances. And in sports, potential is there to develop your own finances in which you can now invest. So you see, sportsmen and entertainers not just using their money now for vehicles and houses, but they're investing in things that can provide for posterity. And having them children, them thinking about them grandchildren. So now they're thinking economics. So those who control the plantation don't want Black people generally to break out of the system that they set and begin to earn independent of the plantation society. It grieves them. So the basketball contracts in America, if those players come here, everybody that job dead out of green, out of envy and red eye. Because they get paid in the millions. I mean, they fight down a man who says they get 25,000 a month and you shouldn't get that because he's too much and he's on the ball in my play. And we rise up in our grudgeful minds. But it's a colonial over superstructure that brings us behavior. Yeah, it's a superstructure of grudgeful of each other because they claim that things are scarce. And the benefits are scarce. I've been hearing that for 60 years in Jamaica about scarce benefits. I want to know how the benefit can't done yet. Those are languages they use to trap our meditation. So sports, and the way the society is so structured and racist and classes, that you see the bias relative to sport, like even lawn tennis. These are class-based teams now. Because, in the English structure, that games are for the hooligans and the poor people, and the games of the rich. Archery and golf tennis and swimming. These are the sports and the games that the rich will play. And they will leave football and running and boxing to the Negroes. So even today they claim that black people can't perform well in certain sports because those sports were never made for them. But little by little, every sport we get introduced to as a people, we control it. In dominance, play. Couldn't enter baseball in America, break the color line, dominant player. Basketball, same thing. Ice hockey, even this is the black man. Because black people invent hockey in Canada. Because we developed that game. You know. Don't think that is a white man game. Black man developed hockey in Canada. But you have to see the black man playing it in the professional level. Because of who control it. Who control the resources. So we have to be aware now, as African people, as youths, that is not just about performance. At one time, we all wanted to perform, because we wanted what they call exposure. Oh, I want some exposure, see. When we perform, we're not looking for any compensation payment, because we're so glad to perform. And those who would encourage us to perform will be exploiting our talents. And when we finish performing, we don't even have a bus to go back home. Nor are we providing a meal or a drink. So the exploitation of talent in a place like Jamaica has been rampant. It takes rebellion to break out from one like Mali to get all the music played from the national airwaves. Bad man is the number of use. So the place is just hold down for cultural entertainment, which is African centered. And the government has put entertainment and culture and sports in one ministry. 3 multi-billion-dollar industries locked up under one woman. Cruel. Cruel. And then the choices have to be made now between going to, according to her, going to KPH or go to Tony Tweed Swing. Entertainers can have a choice because they have more money. You ever heard anything like that? So we're living in a society where the youths are breaking out of that mold, just like Traore, breaking out of the mold that we have been living under for the last 60 to 200 years, where we must be subservient to colonial structures. And sports and games is a structure set up by the colonials. We see where the lines and the borders can be moved in Mali and Chad, and bigger places established, we must move the borders in our minds when they relate to sportsmen. And stop treating sportsmen and women as though that they lack intellect. And claim for the other people who are bright. Our bright people become the crooks. The bright people, them I don't trust. I did my service at the university and I didn't use them. No, I'm not trying to develop no bright youth. I want to use them to be conscious. The bright one, them tricky and sneaky and do things then bandoogle and go through and end up joining the political structure. So we have to see the value of the sport. And sportsmen and women must begin to return to an island like Jamaica and take up governance positions. Pele became Minister of Sport. Wes Hall was a Minister of Sport. Imran Khan became a Prime Minister. Wendell Matley. We need our sports men and women to come into the level of governance. Yeah, governance. Are really loved by the people and understand themselves because they are coming from the people. Yeah, man. So they must see the connection between themselves and the political running of them country. We can't be turned over to these guys and men and women who never run yet. Or never committed themselves to Jamaica yet. But yet they are defining how we as Jamaicans must behave. So we have to check the power that we have through sports. And don't give it away. Because now the reggaeboyz don't belong to Jamaica as far as I'm concerned. It's an overseas based unit. There's no commitment and no nationalism in the program. When the anthem play, the man and look up in the sky and look about the place. There's no passion. So when the reggaeboyz FC run out against Panama, one man score a hat-trick in 25 minutes. Not even schoolboys do those things. That means there's just no team out there. So some man run out in a must-win match. You can't see 3 goals in 20-25 minutes. Everybody should be put away. And we will be the reggaeboyz again from here so. Yeah, it's serious. But who's I to say that? I'm on Black, Gandhi, that is who it is. And I'm on this thing from before, yeah. It's a profession. That's how I come to know it in my experiences in America. And I've struggled in my 35 years in Jamaica here trying to operate in an amateur culture. Really, really, really painful. But because it's home, I'm on just deal with it until the point where I'm on don't deal with it anymore. Spectators, outrageous. Outrageous. Knowledge of the game, poor. But everybody is an expert. So you have to just stand aside and look at the reggaeboyz program. 27 years later, no progression. Japan, all of the nations who are participating in the World Cup have gone ahead because they are working on the development of their own people. They're not just into the promotion of the national team, they're into the development. So where is the national under 14 team in Jamaica? Who's the national under 14 coach? What is the program outlined and put in place and the finances to sponsor that? Where is the development from the money people in the society? You can stop violence and crime if you really want to. Rather than spending the money on the police, spend the money in the building of infrastructure of entertainment and sports and see the change. Or maybe it's not necessary. Maybe it's better off when the guns come and you just keep chasing guns and the game goes on. So, we're going to go through 1 hour. Give thanks.
This train is bound for Kingston, Jamaica, West Indies. We are going to Girls Town. All aboard!
Yes. Unity. The only time. Since emancipation, 1998, November, Black unity. Jamaica flag, Rastafari flag, and nation. Moving towards a liberation that was denied by the politicians. The unity frightened them. So we're rising up. Ibrahim Traore is the inspiration for our uprising in this time. And we are reclaiming our sovereignty intellectually and the sovereignty of the soil. Yes, we are owning our own talents. Yes, we're not owned by anyone. The lands are not owned by outside, and our talents and our mental resources are owned by no one except the art. So the Renaissance is done. Yes, it's not an easy road. Yes, I. Athletes who want to go to a foreign country and improve their life, I don't have a problem with Yeah, man. Those who should care don't care. They better care. Don't make the man frightened and call you a name. And a traitor and a sellout. Don't make them frightened you. Grudgeful, them grudgeful. But stay positive. And keep your family in your meditation. Yeah.